Well, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Social Strategy Mum podcast. And I am super excited today to be talking to Nat Stewart from Business Jump, who is solely responsible for my leap into business. And I know that she'll have some awesome stuff that she can share with us today about getting started with business, but also about storytelling and the art of using that to grow your social media and to really build a connection and a community of people that you are helping and serving in order to move them into your business. So Nat, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. Tell us a little bit about you, your business, your journey, your crazy life as it is right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm the owner and founder of Business Jump. We're in probably about our third year, coming up to our fourth year. And basically I help people set up an online business. And I'm also the admin and owner of Remarkable Business Mums, which is a Facebook group for mums in business. We're at over 14,000 members now. So yeah, my day-to-day life is just running those two platforms.
Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up at Business Jump? Because you had a bit of a process to get there.
I did. So when I had my daughter, who is 10 now, I did that whole new mum thing, entering back into the workforce, thought that everyone would love my baby just as much as me. And it was a little bit of a rude shock when I realized that they actually didn't. And I just really struggled to sort of navigate that environment. And ultimately what ended up happening is I found myself in actually a really mum unfriendly environment. And without any warning, I was fired. So no warnings, no insights, no clues, and I was just fired, which was a massive shock to me, but it turned out to be the best thing that happened to me in my whole life, because I then went on and decided to myself that I was no longer going to put my fate in someone else's hands. And that was really my T-intersection to how I decided to be my own boss. And I leveraged off some background experience that I had in website design and graphic design, and I'd always had businesses on the side. So Business Jump didn't come straight away. Business Jump came probably a few years later, but yeah, the rest is history really after that.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, I think it's so important to point out to people that sometimes the best things come out of the worst things.
Oh, 100%.
And also, we don't always start the journey with a roadmap to the end.
Yeah, 100%. I love it when anyone tells me that they've been made redundant, they've been fired, or they've had some type of adversity, because I can always see that as a T-intersection. And sometimes we go through life or our jobs and that calling is there, but we don't pay attention to it. And then things start to grate on us and start to get really uncomfortable. And if we don't take action, then usually what will happen is something massive like redundancy or a fire, or sometimes we'll go through depression and not feeling fulfilled. So anytime I chat to someone, I can usually see the chain of events that has led them to actually deciding to start their own business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so true. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that original reason that we did get started. And it's so important to have some things around us and some people around us that remind us of why we are where we are and why it is worthwhile, even on the days when, you know, maybe the clients are crappy or you're just not feeling it.
Yeah. Oh, and also just to acknowledge that that's normal. Like, I have so many days where I daydream about going and working at Kmart. Like, sometimes I just think that would be the most awesome job. I don't have to make any decisions. I'm not responsible for necessarily anything. I could just stack shelves. Like, I would love that some days, but I'd last 5 minutes and then I'd be like, okay, back to business.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's get into this whole idea of storytelling and social media, because this is the reason why I originally thought that I would love to speak to you. Because I've noticed through Business Jump social media and also through the Remarkable Business Mums that one of the key ways that you build connections and conversations with people about business is by telling stories. And I don't mean telling stories as in telling tall stories. I mean by sharing parts of you and your life and your business. Yeah. So has that been something that you have always done, or is this something that's developed over time?
It's not something that I've always done. It was actually something that I stumbled across. I never, and I sort of, I mean, obviously it's strategic, but the strategy side of it is actually never my intention. So whenever I write something, it's always something that generally comes to me more intuitively. And it's something that I just feel inclined to say. So yes, it is like, it's two-tone. So yes, it is a massive, huge part of strategy in business, or it can be, or it's a very powerful part. But for me, it just comes more from helping and serving. And a natural byproduct is, yes, it has been incredible for my business's growth and connection. And when we sort of look to the reasons behind that, it's really just because people connect and relate with emotion, as opposed to, just data or just words or something. So I can understand and see why it's been so impactful in my business, but I literally just stumbled across it. There was no strategy behind it when I first started doing it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So was it a case then of doing it a few times and then just seeing that there was that connection?
Yeah, I think just one day, I feel like I can remember that first post as well. It was just about, business is actually hard. And we all have our days where it all feels challenging, but, we need to, it was something along the lines of, have persistence and grit. And that post just got so much engagement, so much traction. But the main thing that I noticed was it felt good. Like I felt like I had something that connected, and everyone that said, I feel like this, or me too. So I've always followed what feels good in my business, more so than stats or analytics or anything like that.
Do you find that hard sometimes if something feels good, but then maybe the stats don't back it up, at least initially?
I think for me, because I am very sort of intuitive, and that's how I work. So and that's working just within my zone of genius. So for some people that are very sort of like, they like to plan, they like to schedule, they like to look at those stats, then that would probably feel really uncomfortable for them. So that's not saying I get it right all the time either, but say 7 or 8 times out of 10, if I just follow with what feels good, I find that it comes so much more authentically and easily for me, as opposed to worrying about stats. So I generally find that it all balances out.
Yeah. So I wonder then if you ever had a time where it felt difficult to just follow what felt good, or like you were doing the wrong thing because it was too easy.
Yes, but I think it's really important to stop and say, okay, why does this not feel right? Is this fear? Is this because my expectations aren't, in alignment? So it's a sort of layered thing. And, sometimes also we actually just need to put ourselves out there and feel uncomfortable, and that doesn't feel good either. So yeah, there's a few different things that factor into that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So when it comes to this storytelling, the one place where I see you do it so effectively and create such an engaged community is within your Facebook group. Mm-hmm. So can you give us a little bit of a kind of, history of how that group came about? Yeah. And what things you have done in there, if you've needed to pivot at any point, how you've found best to manage it, all of those kinds of things.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing that I am always telling my clients is to really focus on one thing, master it, and then if they want to, move on to the next thing. So, in social media terms, that would be really focus on a group, master it, nail it, and then move on to your next thing. And focus on where your results come the most easily and the most naturally. So for me, that's just my Facebook group. Like if you look at my Instagram is so shit. Like it's not even like, it's embarrassing that it's so bad. And it's just because I'm going with the path of the least resistance. My group has just always been my place where I feel happy and content, and it's always worked for me. And if I had more time, then I would start to focus on my other platforms, but for now, like, I don't want to spend more time. So that's why, like, that's why my group is the way that it is, because that's the one thing that I've really focused in on and mastered. It came before Business Jump. So before Business Jump, just when I was in business, it was just a sort of like an idea, something that I set up and I threw out there, and it had some members, but then it sort of got forgotten about for a long time. And then when I started Business Jump, it just felt like a natural progression to attach that group to it, because in my mind, I was like, I need to create a pool of potential clients. And, again, we do that either on like our Facebook page or Instagram or wherever, blah, blah, blah. So for me, it was about creating a community where I could then position myself as the go-to. And everything, like, yes, it's grown fairly naturally. I've done things to encourage that growth, but it definitely hasn't been hard work or something that is super time consuming for me along the years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you found that it has been time consuming in terms of the admin of it, or has it been relatively easy?
I don't know, like, if there's something wrong with my group or not, because I hear heaps of people saying that it's so time consuming adminning groups, and yes, like, I get the odd spam, but I do not find it time consuming at all.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting, because that is something people talk to me about. And maybe also that's a bit of a perception thing, that people think that it takes that long. So it's probably good to put it out there that it doesn't have to.
Yeah. Well, I was chatting with someone else about this just last week or the week before, and she was saying the same thing, like, it must take you so much time. And I'm like, no, I'm starting to feel like the odd one out here, because my group does not take me that much time. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, because obviously it's a channel that's working. It's, doing what you need it to do, and it's doing it without a lot of your input. So that sounds pretty much like the perfect option to me. Yeah. And no wonder you haven't taken the time to, branch out and really focus on another channel when you have one that is consistent. Yeah. And it's consistently converting, obviously, as well.
Yeah. Well, it's a part of the puzzle. So I guess because people will see Business Jump, and because it's a high price ticket item, it means that there's a few factors and a few layers that need to go into that before people will feel comfortable potentially working with me. And that comes down to trust, credibility, social proof, expertise. So my group is the perfect place and the perfect environment to demonstrate all of those things, so that when people do want to work with me, they feel like they know me, and they know that, like, I'm just not some random crazy person on the internet.
Yeah, that's going to take their money and run and never support them. Yeah, definitely not what you are, Nat. That is for sure. So that's really interesting, because one of the questions that I actually had written down was for a little bit of information about how these things are part of a bigger marketing strategy. Yeah. So you can't just have this one thing in isolation. So I don't know if you can talk a bit to that, and just how it needs to actually, there needs to be a purpose and a plan. Yeah. Are you asking me what my purpose and plan is with my group? Well, I guess, how does it fit into your funnel, if we want to go there with that word? Yeah. So I guess my business attracts traffic by some organic avenues, but also largely by paid ads, because I just find that is very automated. And once you learn how to nail paid ads, it generally flows. Sometimes it can be a pain in, I was going to say the head, but the neck or the butt or whatever. And then as soon as someone opts in from like, as soon as the traffic hits my website, they convert into a lead. And then as soon as they convert into a lead, straight away they get invited to my Facebook group.
So my Facebook group is a very up and front center platform that I encourage a lot of people to join for exactly the reasons I mentioned before in regards to building trust and credibility. And most people that then come back to me after they've, because people like to stalk, if you know, like most people will stalk people online before working with them. So people will do a bit of a stalk and then they'll come back to me, and most of the time they'll say, I feel like I know you. And it's also a part of allowing my business to do the selling for me, so I don't need to. So within my storytelling, there's a lot of sales psychology, again, layering back to those factors of social proof and credibility and trust and positioning and authority. So a lot of the time people will come to me having already made up their mind about whether they would like to work with me, because my group has supplied them all of that information, and it means that I don't have to sell in my business.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. I like so many things there, like the paid avenues of traffic, which is super important, particularly as you're scaling a business. And then this idea that there's one central place that people come to really learn about you and what you offer. And I definitely came, I don't even actually remember how I found the Remarkables group, but that's where I first got to know Business Jump. And it does exactly that. It really gives you this, for me, a feeling of what it's going to be like to work with you and your business. So I guess to wrap this all into one thing, I would love you to share with us what your top tip for managing motherhood and business is. And for those people that maybe don't know you, you are now a mother of 4. So I couldn't think of a better person to ask than how on earth do you make it all happen?
You know what? Like, I feel like a fraud because I have my husband's home. So my top tip is start a business, get it to a point where it supports you and your family, have another baby, and then get your husband to be the stay-at-home dad. So that's, you know, like that's what I've done. But if I have to, you know, because I get a lot of people that say that to me, and I like, as you would know, like for me, you just get like the raw truth. I can't go, oh, well, yes, I'm running a business and I have 4 kids and I'm doing it all immaculately. I take so many shortcuts. I have my husband helping me. I do not understand how I got easy babies this time round. So it's a lot of factors, but to try and also give you some tangible advice for when I was doing all of this and I was home without my husband and I had my 2 older children, I think it's just being kind. I just think it's being kind to ourselves, so we can get so stressed out and we've got to do this and we've got to do this and we put so much pressure on ourselves, and then the kids are jerks and then we get, you know, all frazzled and then we think we can't do it. But my best advice to anyone that is in that space feeling like that is just to be kind to themselves and not to judge themselves for not getting everything that they wanted done during the day, because I know that personally that can lead to a lot of stress and it can lead to P&D, and I really think just coming from a place of being centered and whole and content and confident is the key to being able to then spread that out into business and our lives and everything else.
I love that. That's awesome. Because not everyone is going to be at the point right now where they can support their family off their business and retire their husband, for sure. But it's about those little steps and it's about just giving yourself a break sometimes. Yeah.
For me, business is, and you've probably heard me say this many times, is, 80% mindset and 20% strategy. The strategy, to be honest, is actually so easy. It's so simple, but the mindset before it and our interpretation and our perspective and everything is what makes it so incredibly hard, and that's why so many people fall at all different stages. And I just am such a huge advocate of us first and then everything flows into business. For any mum that's listening that has kids at home and is trying to do it all, just pat yourself on the back and say you're incredible for even trying in the first place. Like, that is so much more than what some other people do. So you're already ahead.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, Nat, thank you so much for giving us your time today around all of that busy schedule. Super helpful stuff in there. I really hope that people that are listening will take away some great things from the episode. And thank you so much for your support and mentorship of my journey over the last couple of years. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for being so amazing and incredible, and for the opportunity to come and have a chat on your podcast.
Great. Thanks, Nat.